Hello there, and welcome to the Dr. Grant Show, Professional Edition. We are live right now, and today's topic is how to end emotional eating when you can't quit your job. I often work with many women that are stressed emotional eaters, food addicts, people that binge at night and often overeat. And the reason for today's topic is often when we start working together, what pops up and begins to bubble up to the surface is they are feeling trapped in their jobs. Their jobs are the reason why they are emotionally eating. And it's because they're really trapped in a job where they're not an ideal match for that position. Now, under normal circumstances, when you're not an ideal match for a position in your job, people that are not vulnerable to the effects of emotional eating, stress eating, food addiction, you may just feel a wee bit miserable. You may find other outside venues and outlets, for example, to help you cope and help you manage. Some people, for example, may experience stress and they may use and talk to their family, for example, or their friends. And that approach and coping mechanism helps kind of deflate the intensity of the feelings that they're feeling with a job that they are not an ideal match for. But for people that struggle with emotional eating, food addiction, stress eating, binge eating, being trapped in a job that is not ideal, or that they've awakened all of a sudden to realize that this is not life's purpose, it can be absolutely deadly. This is because emotional eating, when left unchecked, when left out of control, when unaided, binge eating as well, it results in health complications that, although not deadly immediately, it can become deadly in the long term. This is in the form of weight gain. This could be in the form of other addictive behaviors, even all the way down to insomnia. And I see someone has chimed in. Hi, Michelle. She says it's all temporary. You need to feel the emotions. And she says, I was that person. Yes. Yes, I definitely feel you and see you there. I experienced it as well. And I've seen other people, even on LinkedIn, for example, there where they've balanced their personal, their professional lives. And for some people, they wound up working until they were completely burnt out and in the hospital. I, for example, struggle with food addiction symptoms. And now, food addiction, just to clarify, scientific research has found that food addiction, it is real, because the classic argument is always, well, how can you be addicted to food? You need food to live. If you are vulnerable to the effects of food addiction, it is almost like any other addiction. The neural pathways that are meshed in your brain and how your nervous system responds, it is the same approach as addiction, where you find yourself going out of your way to get the desired outcome in terms of food. You find yourself eating when you're not hungry. And this is not a one-time event. This is a chronic reoccurrence. So just to give you a very brief nosedive into food addiction and what food addiction is. And it's on a spectrum. You may be on the extreme side of food addiction, where it's taken over your life and also you're seeing the weight consequences of it. Some people that struggle with food addiction, which is also tied to emotional eating, they are, when you look at them, a normal weight, or at least that's what mainstream society would say is a normal weight. Emotional eating and food addiction are two sides of the same coin. And there are many, many, many different things that can trigger it. The goal here of today's show with the Dr. Grant Show is to set your feet on the path so that you can actually have some resources and be able to identify what the problem is if you're in a job that's not a good match for you. And you will walk away from today's program with more options than you started with. I'm going to cover with you 8 ways to change the narrative without resigning from your position. And this is the shocker for a lot of people. When we find out in my sessions and my virtual wellness practice that, oh my goodness, my job is playing a much bigger role in my emotional eating than I thought, the next question naturally and intrinsically is, do I have to resign? Should I quit my job? And most people are very surprised to find out that my answer is often no. And we'll dive deeper into what the solutions are now. So here are the 8 topics that I will be covering. Number 1, how your work environment contributes to emotional eating. Number 2, the impact of your job on your health. Number 3, should you quit your job? Obvious question. And it's a multifaceted answer there. Number 4, how to deal with stress at work. Number 5, the garbage truck analogy. Number 6, neuroacoustic biochemical code and finding out what yours is. Number 7, what can you do to change your relationship with food and work? And finally, number 8, identify the significance of your food cravings. All right, let's go. Let's get into it. This program will last, as usual, about 30 minutes, give or take, on questions. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, by the way, okay? So, number 1, let's dive into it. How your work environment contributes to emotional eating. Your work environment contributes to emotional eating in usually 2 ways. A, it's the environment itself. It's causing you anxiety. It's causing some depressive symptoms. It's causing you to be stressed out. It's the actual physical environment that you're in, and therefore your body is reacting to that physical environment. The second way that your work environment contributes to emotional eating are the individual people themselves. Your work environment, so far as where you work and how you're working, that may be fine, but there might be 1 or 2 or 5 people that if they weren't there and if you didn't have to interact with them, you just might make it in your job. And I see someone else is logged in. Hi, Catherine. I apologize. I may not have had enough caffeine to pronounce your name correctly. Let me know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. But welcome to today's show. Feel absolutely free to drop any questions that you have in the chat. If your question, as it begins to surface in your mind, you find that maybe it requires more of a private answer, feel free to also send me a direct message and we can just simply chat offline. I like to give people that option if it's a more sensitive question. I'm just simply here to serve. Okay. So identifying these 2 ways that your work environment contributes to emotional eating is very crucial, because then you can begin to construct a solution and figure out what is truly the problem. This in psychology is called chunking down. The reason why this is so important and why you should care is, once again, it moves you much faster to identifying what the solution is to your problem. So that's number 1. So just to rehash, how your work environment contributes to emotional eating, it is either environmental, meaning just the whole entire way that the company is, your workspace. It can be anything along those lines. Or number 2, the physical people that you're dealing with. It's important to be able to distinguish which one it is. If you feel like it, if you're comfortable, feel free to type it in the chat or just grab a trusty sheet of paper and just make a note. Number 2, the impact of your job on your health. People often think that the effects of a bad day, try as you might, do not spill over into your personal life. But we would be woefully, vastly underestimating the effects of our work in our lives. There have been research studies that have shown that we spend over 50%, sometimes 80%, and I'd be willing to say more, 80%. That number is kind of creeped into with the explosion of remote work. The boundary lines between work and personal have blurred. Have you seen it? Have you noticed it? If you have the opportunity to work remotely, it's often hard to shut everything off because you turn around and your laptop is right there calling you, beckoning to you, begging you to add one more thing to your plate. If left unchecked, an often common mistake is just underestimating that isn't there, that your thoughts about work, the constant nagging stress in the back of your mind and thoughts in the back of your mind of said project that you didn't fully get a chance to complete. What that does is that it raises something called cortisol. Cortisol is the commonly known as the stress hormone. Now, we like cortisol. Cortisol is actually beneficial and useful in the body, quiet as it's kept. It's extremely beneficial in the fight or flight. However, we're not running from dinosaurs and a saber-toothed tiger is usually when we think about cortisol and fight or flight. But that's only for a short time. Cortisol being released and epinephrine being released, the hormones that are and the chemicals responsible for your fight or flight response, are great in short bursts. Not so much, not so great when it's constantly, chronically released over the long term. I'm certain any of our medical professionals would agree with me on this. And there are numerous research studies and scientific studies that talk about the long-term debilitating effects of cortisol being released in that stress response. So the direct beeline answer and straight arrow answer for the effect of your job on your health, especially if you are an emotional eater or a food addict or a person that binges, is increased instances, frequencies, and durations of your emotional eating or your overeating or giving into food cravings. Going on and extended even longer, those effects can also lead to, and this is a little bit further down the road, certain health issues, from high blood pressure, depressive symptoms. Inflammation has also been linked in scientific studies to stress. It's about more than what you eat. So the reason why I'm covering this with you is so that you can understand the very deep significance of, if you are an emotional eater or a food addict and you can't quit your job, why we should pay more attention to this pattern and don't just assume that I'll address it later. Number 3, in light of all this information, the obvious question that's usually floating around in most people's heads is, should I quit my job? I have an answer to you and for you. The answer is usually no, because until you get a wrangle on what the true stressor is with your job, you go to another job, and unless you identify and get to the root of what the stressor is and why it's triggering you, it'll just happen again in another form. We don't want that. So 2 buckets is what you need to look at in terms of assigning and asking the question, should I quit my job? Bucket number 1 is, are you in the camp of, I feel like my job stinks all the time. There's nothing whatsoever that's redeeming about my job. I can't think of one thing. Now, sometimes the knee-jerk reaction that you're going to give me when I say and make this statement is, yes, I definitely fall in this bucket. Not so fast. You might need a little bit of help figuring out if really you're in that bucket. Think about the reason why you took the job. Not all the jobs in the world that you could have taken. You ever see the show? There's a show called Odd Jobs, and they show all these different kind of jobs, from miners to people working in the sewer. I mean, let's be real. There could be other jobs that you could be working. So there is always a slight pinprick of rationale as to why you picked this one. Now, it's always possible something changed from the time that you started to where you are right now. But before you jump into the choo-choo train in the bucket of, I feel like my job stinks all the time, let's backtrack a little bit and list, what were the redeeming parts of your job, first of all, that you liked, no matter how small? Second bucket, I feel like my job stinks sometimes. This is definitely a bucket that we can work with. We've got some material here. In this case, you can quickly grab a sheet of paper right now and find out, what are the top 3 things that you like about your job? What are the top 3 things that you don't like about your job? And you can write them down. If you're catching this on the replay, feel free to go right ahead and just write them down as you're listening to this. And make sure to share this with someone as well, because our show is on Wednesdays at 9:00 a.m. Central Standard Time, and on Saturdays, the recorded version at 1:00 Central Standard Time. And all of this is geared around giving emotional eaters and food addicts and stress eaters the tools that they need and putting their feet on the right path to get them started. It serves as a resource to educate, because oftentimes if we don't have anything scientifically based, and everything that I am hashing over with you is scientifically based, either based in psychology or based in fitness or based in food approaches, various things like that. So once again, back to the question, should I quit my job? It depends. Are you in the bucket of, I feel like my job stinks all the time? Or I feel like my job stinks sometimes. Understanding that is definitely going to be the key to realizing what action you should take next. Okay? Let me make an adjustment here on the volume here. Okay, there we go. Let's get into number 4. How to deal with stress at work. If you've been taking some of these recommendations that I've been providing to you, you may already be formulating a plan on how to deal with stress at work. If nothing's coming to mind, allow me to help you out just a touch. How to deal with stress at work. The first thing here is identify how and where the stress feels. Are you feeling your stress here in your chest? Are you feeling it in your shoulders? Where exactly does the ache or pain rest and lie? And energetically, scientifically, you'll be able to know what's really going on. I have a fun chart that I use in my sessions and my one-on-one sessions, where I'm tailor making approaches and helping people find out what their neuroacoustic biofield code is that attacks these items. And it's not as hard as it might seem. It's so easy once you find out, this pain over here, all the way down to, is it left side or is it right side? All of these things come into play. So number 1, identify where that pain is. What does it feel like? Does it feel large or does it feel small? Does it feel near? Does it feel far? Is it a person? Is it the environment? Is it limited to a patch of time because it's project related? Why am I saying these things? Reframing in psychology. It helps your brain neurologically be able to understand, so this is not the way it's going to be forever. It's just because of said project, for example. said project is going to be over with and finish and conclude by the end of the week. Therefore, this stress will be over. It helps your brain put things in perspective. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Even after this is over, I will watch the chat to make certain that I address any questions. And once again, I extend the invitation for you to go ahead and send me a DM, or maybe even set up a free get to know you session so we can really get that custom tailor-made information over to you and solutions to you that are based on you and what your issue and challenge is. There's only so much we can cover in just this one session alone in this one show episode. So, how to deal with stress at work. I covered one thing. Here's another. Identify if it is a skill set issue. Are you feeling resistance to whatever it is that you're dealing with? Because deep down inside, you realize that you just simply weren't trained for this. I was dealing with a client at one point in time that was experiencing an immense, heavy load, pressing weight of stress from her job. And once we started digging around, she realized that because she was hired at the height of the pandemic, a crucial step was missed. She hadn't received the training that she needed. This was a situation that was easy to fix and solve. You just need to talk to your boss and find out, hey, you know, that training, I know we were hired at a really crazy time of year. Here are the top 3 areas that I'm struggling with. I'm giving you a script right now, because just simply coming to your superior and your manager and just stating, hey, you didn't train me and I need to be trained or else I'm not going to be able to do what I need to do. That is not the right approach that yields the most impact. Bariatric surgeons, medical professionals, holistic health professionals, when you're interacting with your clients, this applies to you as well. If your clients are sharing with you, for example, that they are struggling with something at work and work is stressing them out, share with them to avoid asking why at their job. Help them phrase their questions leading with how or what. State what the problem is succinctly to your manager. I am having a hard time with this. State the desired outcome. I want to do X in order to help the company. Phrasing the benefit. After I've taken time to research this, these are the top 2 things that I feel would be a wonderful way to help me do this quicker and faster. And the final thing is, I believe after researching, I found a solution and it rests in X document here or X department there. And I believe if I could be given X amount of time with your assistance, I could master said concept and work much faster. Do you see the difference there? You take the stress, you identify what the stress is, you phrase the problem in a proactive way, you succeed in getting support from your boss and manager, and you also identified a duration of time that you believe that it will take to address said problem to get you ramped up to speed, and you also have identified where you believe the resources lie to fix your problem. What this does is that it fosters a more productive and powerful conversation between you and your boss, or maybe your boss will even get other people involved in order to facilitate finding a solution. I want you to close your eyes for a minute and imagine how much relief you would feel with that type of conversation and solutions being given to you. Imagine how that would feel. If you felt a weight on your chest all this time, imagine that weight being lifted. Now you begin to find joy in your job. Now you are becoming known as the person that's the go-getter, the person that's the problem solver, the person that's proactive. You're not whining, you're constructing a real solution to the problem and working as a team. All right. Number 5, the garbage truck analogy. What is it? There have been times, I'm certain, like other clients that I chat with, where all of a sudden you are working and someone pulls up to your desk or calls or emails, and it feels like they just dumped a hot, steaming load of problems on your desk, unfiltered and all its rotten glory. Maybe you were insulted that day by someone. Maybe someone just bawled you out. It doesn't make a difference what your job is. You could be an MD, DO, DC, holistic health professional, nutritionist, just average person working in social work. I'm just giving various positions, engineer, customer service, but unprovoked, someone just walked up to you or called you and called you everything but a child of God. Um, and you're wondering where this came from. You think that maybe something happened that you missed. You think you're alone. The garbage truck analogy, what it is recognizing that when someone says something to you that makes you feel uncomfortable, makes you feel lower than low, and it was totally unprovoked, you don't know where it came from, they're piling and carrying around with them a garbage truck of garbage. It's heavy, may stink. Think of trash day. Have you ever happened to be driving behind a dump truck? They don't smell too good, and they're usually pretty heavy. Other people are carrying around with them so much emotional trash, so much physical trash that you're unaware of. Mind you, this doesn't excuse them from the action that they took upon you, nor the words and the harmful words they said to you. But if you can look at it this way, that they were carrying around a big fat load of garbage that they just felt the need to dump off on you, and it wasn't your fault. That was their problem, not yours. It helps rewire your brain. It helps change the way that you perceive said feeling of feeling attacked, thus reducing your cortisol levels and your stress response. Got it? Okay. Number 6 point, neuroacoustic biochemical code, and finding out what it is. This is crucial. This is something that I enjoy so much in my sessions with my clients, because I love giving that individualized attention. I love making my clients understand that they are loved and they are adored, that they have so much strength, more strength than they ever gave themselves credit for, to have gotten to where they stand right here, right now. I could go on and go on and on. What is neuroacoustic biochemical code? Neuroacoustic biochemical code basically means understanding how your brain works, what frequencies and what vibrations unlock that blocked area energetically. And because our nervous system and our brains, of course, are connected to the rest of our biology, understanding how it's connected to our biology, how it's impacting our biology, and crafting a solution to it. Identifying that root, pruning apart the emotional attachment to said memory and said action, so that every time that that problem occurs, it's no longer triggering that same response in the future. It works. It works very, very well. A natural byproduct of it is you no longer give in to food binges. You no longer emotionally eat, because you are learning the tools customized and tailor-made for you. So that's what finding your neuroacoustic biochemical code is. Number 7, what can I do to change my relationship with food and work? Now, this kind of dovetails a little bit into number 8, identifying the significance of your food cravings. So I'm going to tag team these two things together. What can you do to change your relationship with food and work? Number 1, identify what side your food craving is on. Is it sweet or is it savory? That's very important. Usually you can find out, and I see somebody joined us. Hi. When you find out what is your default mode, when you are stressed out, when you have the urge to binge and give into emotional eating, what is the first food that comes to mind, even absent-mindedly? And what I mean by that is you just found yourself elbow deep in said food item. I had a client once, she found herself just elbow deep in chips. But then she found out that one of the reasons why she did that was because when she was younger, her parents always gave her chips to snack on whenever she was upset about something. Yours may be just that straight line and arrow. Other people, maybe not so much. Maybe it takes a little bit of digging to find out, why do you keep gravitating towards chocolate, for example? Why do you keep gravitating towards ice cream, for example? The other aspect of this is working to find and identify the foods that you eat and making sure that they are devoid of high fructose corn syrup or MSG, because what that does is hijack your biochemical your biochemical makeup. And it makes you more vulnerable to reaching for said item again, because it has been linked in research to, for people that are food addicted or vulnerable to the symptoms of food addiction, it has been linked to you imbibing in those behaviors by eating those items. So you've got a chemical hijacker going on that you're unaware of it, if you hadn't heard of this before. How to change your relationship with food. Number 2, subtopic under this. After you find out if you're sweet or savory, the other thing is to find out what thoughts are occurring to you when you're finding yourself in that position and thought of, I should do X. A key thing to ask yourself is, what am I thinking about? What happens just before I eat X or before I overeat Y? What happens? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Like, literally, you need to close your eyes right now. Take yourself back in time to the last time you emotionally ate, to the last time you gave into your food addiction cravings, to the last time that you may have binged. Literally, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt. What is the temperature in the room that you're in? Where are you? How are you feeling right now at this moment? What emotion is it? Do this for 3 instances where you binge ate, or you nighttime binge ate, or overate more than you intended to, and it seems to be a chronic pattern. I say this because we're not talking about people that just happened to overeat once because it was a special occasion or something was really delicious. That's entirely different. I'm talking about you actually overeating, and it seems to be a repeat habitual occurrence that is impacting how you feel. When you do this, it helps you change your relationship with food and work, because you begin to identify what specifically is going on at work that's causing you to give in to the urge to binge. You are also discovering what seems to be your default mode of what to get into. Is it sweet or is it savory? You're also simultaneously tap dancing on my final point of identifying the significance of the food craving. If you, and when you take these steps, you will find that your instances of emotional eating, food binges, and food cravings, they will drastically reduce. You'll still need a little bit of help with the neuroacoustic biochemical code and finding out what that is in order to fully get free. But under the context of social cognitive theory, which is a psychological theory founded by Dr. Bandura, one of the things that he talks about is the concept of pre-awareness. Right now, without us even working together, you have become aware of 8 key steps that you can take to help change your narrative to prevent emotional eating when you can't quit your job. And I promise you, you take these steps, you faithfully use them, combined with any of our divine EFT tapping sound baths. We have those available complimentary on our website, edibleaddiction.com. You can check out several of them on our YouTube channel. And these are splendid ways to get you started. But there's only so much that I can cover with you during this brief time that we've shared together. If what I am sharing with you sounds different, it sounds like this may be the solution that your heart, your soul, and your mind have been waiting for, you owe you to dive into this a wee bit further. Bariatric doctors, DOs, holistic health providers, wellness practitioners, if you are listening to your clients and they're sharing with you certain struggles that they haven't been able to get over, no matter how hard they try, but you're limited. You want to help them, but you're limited. You only have 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe half an hour during that time. This is all I do. And I do this because I lost my mother to food addiction, obesity, and emotional eating. And at that time, I made several mistakes unknowingly, talking about diets and willpower and all this stuff that it just scratched the surface, but it didn't help smooth her terrain in her journey to finding the solution to her problem. And when she passed away years ago, I couldn't let it rest. I saw how much she struggled. I saw how it impacted her. And my mother, she lost over 40 pounds at one point in time, and she was so happy, but she regained it back, and it came back with 2 and 3 times its friends. I saw how her struggle with her weight, it wasn't just about the scale. It was life's disappointments that kept just battering her. It hurt her psychologically. It hurt her physically. And this is why I do what I do. What I found was it's about more than working out until you pass out. Now, if you like exercise, good for you. But there's another way. It's about more than watching what you eat or avoiding a specific thing or a specific food group. That can help if that works for you. But what it is, it's about an integrative approach to all of this. It's an integrative approach that takes a look at your mind, and not just mindset and rah and affirmations. Your brain's going to push that back and say, yeah, you're telling me these affirmations, but I don't believe you. There's time and a place for affirmations. Once you identify the source of the belief, pull it up by the root and prune that neural energetic connection to the memory. Then we can construct the other items. We can construct your fitness plan. We can construct your food and give you way better tips on cooking to make the healthy things actually taste good. You know what you should eat. It's just a matter of, are you eating them and wanting to eat them? So let's bring the joy back into that. We can talk about your job and your career, and let's construct some real consultative approaches to your problems. If you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, let's talk about how to get more clients. Let's talk about SEO. It's actually more fun than you might think. But let's put some realistic expectations on and a timeline to getting this stuff done. And one of the benefits that I have of being a business owner, but also struggling with and a constant rehabilitative effort with food addiction and emotional eating, is that I know what it feels like to struggle with it day by day. I also know what it feels like to observe a loved one struggling with it and trying to become an expert in every single thing in the book and knowing about every single wild diet in the book and that deprivation, seeing the victory, but it's short-lived. If you desire a sustainable type of victory, long-term, the only option you have is to get to the true root of the problem and using a neuroacoustic biochemical code approach and method to prune the connection and disentangle the emotion from the memories that keep triggering your response and urge to emotionally eat. All right. So if this sounds good, you can find me on edibleaddiction.com. You can also send me a direct message and you can schedule a free get to know you session. It's my ultimate pleasure and my ultimate joy to really solve the puzzle of the human mind. My great grandma Sarah would have been proud. She wanted me to solve puzzles, 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzles, and I never could get into it. But I never realized it was the mind all along. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Dr. Kirsten Grant. I am the president of Phoenix 6 and host of the Dr. Grant Show, specifically serving people that struggle with and wish to be empowered from emotional eating, food addiction, binge eating, nighttime binge eating, and food cravings. Much love to you. I will see you on Saturday, 1 o'clock Central Standard Time.